Hi everybody, I'm Tim from troutandfeather.com and thanks for viewing this YouTube fly tying tutorial on the Czech-style hare's ear nymph. Now the original hare's ear, in my opinion, is just one of those absolute go-to fly patterns of all time. It's a guide style fly. And what I mean by a guide fly is that they're patterns that can be tied and just cranked out on a regular basis using everyday materials that you probably already have around your vise, and most importantly, they catch a lot of trout. Getting back to the hare's ear, if you do just a quick Google image search on it, you're going to find about 10,000 different flies out there, no two alike. That's kind of the beauty of this pattern. You can vary it slightly based on the region or the stream or river that you're going to fish and still have success on it. In fact, the reason I really love to fish it is because I have so many different variations of the actual pattern. Hence, the one I'm going to be showing you today is probably going to make that total now 10,001. I'll typically be fishing a hare's ear in a river or stream that I know has a very high caddisfly population. But for this specific one, I'm going to be fishing it in rivers that have a really fast riffle or faster current. It's going to be a larger pattern, and I expect it to get to the bottom right now. I have to stress that it's a Czech style of nymph, and I'm going to be fishing it in that manner, basically looking at this as an anchor style fly. What I mean by that is that this fly is going to attach directly to my tippet, and then I'm going to be tying another fly off the bend of the hook. Now this main fly, this hare's ear I'll be tying in the video today, I recommend tying this one in 3 different sizes, size 8, size 10, and size 12. I'll use sizes 10 and 12 more commonly than the size 8, but it's one that I like to have, especially if it's going to be a little bit deeper water. Now those are larger sizes than I typically will recommend in these YouTube videos, but there's a reason for that. The first reason is simple. You're going to have this big fly coming through some really fast water, and I want to make sure those trout can see it. I want them to look at it and say really quickly, do I want that or not? And hopefully the answer is going to be yes. But the second reason I like to fish this large Czech style pattern is because if I tie another fly off the bend of the hook, those fish might kind of take a glance in the direction of this fly, but if they say no, they're going to have another pattern coming directly behind it, about 12 inches behind it, that will look a little bit more reflective of some of the foods that they typically eat. And then I'm hoping if they've rejected this one, they're going to say yes to that pattern coming behind it. With that pattern typically being a small pheasant tail, like a bead head, maybe a WD-40 or a midge larva. Getting back to this hare's ear, there's a lot of other really neat characteristics of this Czech style of pattern. For one, aside from that really large size, we can vary even the scud back material. In some cases, I will have the scud back material, and others, I won't. I'm not going to tell you that it's 100% essential because, in my opinion, I don't think it is. I will give you a little tip. If you don't feel like actually buying scud backing material, just get some Ziploc baggies and cut them into smaller strips. They work just as well. Now, the other thing I want to mention is the notion of having a tail. Do you need a tail on a hare's ear? Yes or no? Now, I don't want to start a little debate. I can't imagine people are going to really get up in arms over that question. But I can tell you on this pattern, I don't put it. It's a guide style fly. I want it tied quick. Adding an extra 30 seconds of a tail is something that I don't find critically important because, again, I'm going to be fishing this in really fast water. Those fish are just going to make their decision in a split second, and I don't believe they're going to be looking for the tail. I don't see that as the key characteristic to this pattern. Instead, I look at it as, do they want a big meal or not? So with all of that said, I'm going to give you a few more tips for tying and fishing this during the actual tying procedures. But what I want to do next is show you a picture of the finished Czech-style hare's ear, list all the tying materials, and then get into the procedures for this awesome, really just great nymph fly. All right, let's get started tying this hare's ear Czech style. In my Stonefil Cayman vise, I have a hook from Allen Fly Fishing. This is their J100BL, size 10. It's a jig hook, and what's great about that jig hook is because of the curvature of the eye going down, it allows you to put a really heavy bead up there, and it will automatically ensure that that hook point rides point up. That's really advantageous to us as fly fishermen because you'll get less snags because this is going to be riding on the bottom quite a bit. Speaking of the bead, I did use a tungsten slotted bead. I really like tungsten because it's going to get that fly down in a hurry. The size is 1/8. I'll use as large of a size as I can, really, to ensure that weight for this fly. Speaking of weight, you can also add lead wire if you choose, though I'm not going to on this pattern. I'm next going to use my, my 6/0 olive dun thread. I really love this color. This is a color that Unithread puts out, and I really like basically the sheen that it gives off. Next, I want to add in my ribbing. For this fly, I'm going to be using ultra wire. The color is brown and the size is brassy. I prefer that brassy because it has a little bit more bulk to it. So I really prefer that for two reasons. First of all, it's going to add a little bit more weight to the fly. And second of all, I can basically be assured that it's going to be seen, because this fly is going to be going through some heavy water pretty fast. I'm going to lock that wire in right away, and I want it going just slightly down the bend of the hook. I want to ensure that I get a little bit more body than normal. For the dubbing on this pattern, there's three that I primarily use. The one I'll be tying with in this video is going to be the Natural Fox color from SLF. This is their spiky dubbing. Let me give you a little zoom out so you see the color. It's more what I consider the medium, my all-around color. My second favorite is a little bit of a lighter one. This is made by Hare. It's their Hare's Ear color, with the main difference between the SLF spiky dubbing and the Hare being that this Hare is a little bit more natural. It doesn't have too many synthetics in, if any whatsoever, versus the SLF. It produces a little bit more of a spiky exterior of the fly, and there is a little bit of synthetic within it. And the third color that I love to use is, again, this SLF spiky dubbing for the brand, and the color being just brown. It's really my dark. So whenever I'm thinking about dark caddis flies, I turn to this. The Natural Fox is my general one. And then for that third, I go with the Hare dub and Hare's Ear, which is the lighter. You can really see the transition between these three colors. Well, to apply this spiky dubbing, really simple. I'm just going to dub it straight onto my thread for the body. Because this is a large hook, you are going to use quite a bit of dubbing. So whenever you think you have enough, add another pinch or two. We want to bring that up the whole way to the thorax. That might just get me there. I'm going to try to texture it slightly, or taper it, just so it builds progressively. Alright. When I get to that area, I'm going to bring my ribbing forward. I'm looking to get approximately 4 turns on a size 10. Once I have that turn in, I'm just going to wrap forward, keeping my wraps close, basically just adding some weight to the head of the fly. Lock that in place with my thread. I have a pair of scissors that are meant for cutting wire. And that's it for the body. Now I'm going to use the same material for my thorax, but instead of simply dubbing it on, I'm going to be using a dubbing loop. This is one from Stonfo. It's my favorite one. I've used this in a few of my other videos. To use this particular dubbing loop, I'm simply going to extend my thread so the thread's coming towards my body. Latch onto my thread with this tool and just create a little loop. Lock it in place with a few wraps, wind my thread forward, and then I have a loop which I can control the size by either bringing it closer to me or letting it go closer to the fly. Once I have that loop, I can then just pinch off some of this spiky dubbing. I'm going to use the same thing, and I want to just really pack in this dubbing in my loop. This is going to serve for a couple purposes. It's going to look like legs because it's so close to the head, and it's also going to provide really a heavy interior to that fly. So now I have all this thread that's locked into my dubbing loop. To use this one from Stonfo, you simply spin, and you'll see it's starting to now take on those characteristics of almost that, like a rope-like texture. I'm just going to pick out some of those fibers with my fingernail. Not doing anything crazy there. And just keep spinning. Be careful if you use the Stonfo device, because this is one of those ones that
you just want to keep on spinning. And I've spun so many times that I've broken my thread a number of times because it's just so fun to spin. Kind of reminds me of being a kid again, I guess. As I wrap forward, I'm going to try to pull some fibers back because I really prefer those fibers shooting towards the back versus the front. As I get near the head, I can lock this in place. Look over my fly, make sure I have everything covered, which I do. I'll zoom back in during this part. I'm going to put a few turns in for a whip finish. And then to solidify my next series of whip finish, I'm just going to add a little bit of Sally Hansen. This is the hard as nails. Looks like this bottle's starting to dry up in a sense. And that's it. There is my nearly finished fly, but the last part is really a critical one in my mind. I may grab a dubbing brush. This is one that you can purchase at most fly tying stores. You do not need to have an actual dubbing brush. If you look at the tip, this is just Velcro. There's a small section of Velcro, a large section, and then this wire. And for this fly in particular, I prefer this small section to just dig out the body of the fly a little bit. I don't need it coming out in a crazy manner, but I just want to dig it out just a little bit, maybe pulling a little bit more with the larger Velcro. Then I'm going to turn to the wire, and now I want to dig out by the head of this fly throughout the thorax to really help get some of those legs pulling out. Now be careful, if you do this really close to where your thread wraps, you may actually cut your thread. So instead I just recommend going forward, digging those fibers out, and then pull them back. It's going to add a real great translucency to your pattern, and it's really going to look wonderful once it gets wet. Trust me on that. So now I have my finished hare's ear Czech nymph style. Before I go any further, I want to just talk to you about a few more areas of this fly. For starters, during my introduction, I mentioned the notion of having a scud back. If that's something you're interested in because you know there's a lot of scuds in your local waters, then I recommend having the scud go off this side of the hook, basically the side you're looking down at. Will they always see that scud backing? Maybe, maybe not, because more than likely this fly is going to be riding, again, hook point up, and that part will be down. However, that fly will be rolling in the current, and there's definitely an opportunity for them to see it. More importantly, when you have that scud back on one side, all the legs will naturally be at the bottom, which will really help to represent that scud. Second of all, if you noticed, I didn't add any hen hackle or Hungarian partridge to this fly. That is without a doubt an option, though it's another step. I think you probably picked up that adding a dubbing loop is another step as well, but that's one that I believe is really beneficial for this fly. I don't add hen hackle to the larger patterns just because, again, I don't think they're as important because this fly is going so quickly through the water. I talked about the different dubbings, and I really just want to mention those one more time. And I'll zoom out so you can get an idea of this. The SLF Spiky, this is the natural fox. That's a look at the finished fly. In terms of the hairline dubbing, it's definitely a lot lighter of a pattern. So that's this color. And you can see how it's definitely a little bit more of a gentler style fly. Whenever it gets wet, everything will go back. And then the final one, this is the brown SLF. Just takes on a darky look and again has those spiky characteristics. All right, let me get back to the natural fox. And then I'm going to zoom in and I want to mention just a couple more things. Next, the ultra wire that I used was a brown color, which I think really just gives a great look compared to this natural fox and to the hare's ear of that hairline dubbing. However, whenever you use this brown of an ultra wire with this dark brown of a dubbing or this brown dubbing, the wire almost disappears in a sense even when that fly is wet. So keep that in mind. On that pattern that I just showed you previously, the darker one, I did use the darker brown dubbing and or the darker brown ribbing, and I'm guessing you may not have picked up on that ribbing. Let me put that fly back in the vise. There is brown ribbing there, but it's definitely a little difficult to see. So keep in mind that you have some flexibility to adjust those ribbings. If you really want to see that ribbing on this fly, I would say go with a copper. Another great color to really be paired with that bead would be silver. And then finally, one that I use quite a bit on this pattern as well, especially the lighter colors, is olive. So those are 3 additional colors that I recommend aside from that brown ultra wire. Well, with that said, I am going to finally wrap up this video. I'll put this natural one in one more time. So thank you very much for viewing this video. If you have any questions or comments regarding this pattern or any additional ones, feel free to contact me in the comments section at the bottom of this YouTube page. Or as always, you can email me at tcammisa@gmail.com. Thanks especially go out to Allen Fly Fishing for the use of their J100BL jig hook. You can find that hook and many more at allenflyfishing.com. If you'd like to view any of my other videos, feel free to check out my website, which is troutandfeather.com. I have them all broken into various categories there, and I update the site on a regular basis. If you really want to get almost more of the up-the-minute updates, feel free to like Trout and Feather on Facebook. So with all that said, thanks again everyone for viewing this YouTube fly tying tutorial on the Hare's Ear Czech Nymph style.